Okay. Hi everyone, welcome. We're just going to wait a minute or two to let everyone log in before we get started. Where is everyone tuning in from? Feel free to respond in the chat. Awesome, we've got both East Coast and West Coast representing. Everett, Seattle, Baltimore, Boston, Minnesota, Midwest, Colorado, Portland, New York, Denver. Awesome. Magic of Zoom technology. Jessica says, I love Andrea's books. I've used the new book several times already and the recipes are great. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Jessica. Okay, I think we'll get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Paulina. I am Booklarder staff, and I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in wherever you are for today's author talk with Andrea Bemis to celebrate her new book, Local Dirt. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Booklarder, we are a cookbook store here in the Fremont neighborhood of Seattle. Typically, we host all of these author talks in the store, but one silver lining is that we've been able to transition to online via Zoom, and we've been able to host all sorts of authors and interviewers and attendees from all over. So that has been just a huge silver lining. So yay for technology. Today's author talk, Andrea will be in conversation with Ashley Rodriguez, who is a Seattle-based cookbook author. And they will be talking for about 45 to 50 minutes, and they will save the last 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions for Andrea, you will see a Q&A sidebar at the bottom of your screen. And if you have a question for Andrea, just type it into the Q&A, and Ashley will read them out loud at the end, and Andrea will answer them. Please save the chat for any comments you have, and direct all of your questions to Q&A. Today's author talk will be recorded, and in case you have to leave early, you will be able to catch the entire author talk on our Booklarder YouTube channel. So that will be uploaded the next day or two. So just go to YouTube, search Booklarder, and you'll find it, and you'll be able to see not only this author talk, but all the other ones that we have done in the past few months. And lastly, if you haven't had a chance to order Andrea's book, I've pasted the link at the top of the chat. And you can order your books through Booklarder, and you can either pick them up at the store, or we can ship them to you as well. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Andrea and Ashley.
Are you there?
Yes. Hey, Ashley.
Hi.
Thank you
Okay,
so much.
there you are. For some reason I couldn't see your face, but there. Well, here we are. So wonderful. I feel like we're hanging out and we're hanging out with a group of people, which, it's been a minute.
It's
It's
been
been
a
a
minute.
minute. How
Totally.
are how are you doing?
Hanging in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of like I told you a little earlier. The early part of this whole pandemic, things are pretty similar on the farm. We don't see a lot of people on a day-to-day basis, so we're pretty used to being alone. But I think the winter and fall sort of yeah, starting to sink in a little bit. But we're healthy, we're happy, and that's
Good.
all we can
Well,
ask.
and you have this beautiful book. Congratulations. It is so stunning. The photos are gorgeous. They strike that perfect balance of like just the eye-catching, but they feel so real. And this whole book I just want to dig into all of it. And in fact, tonight I'm so excited for dinner because we're making your buttermilk biscuits with sausage gravy. So I'm really
Yum.
excited. I'm
I'm
really,
so
really
excited.
excited.
I'm excited for you. And
Yeah.
Taylor's excited for you too, because that was his big request for if I was writing kind of a comfort food, recipes. His whole diner food fare is biscuits and gravy.
That's amazing. I saw that note and I was like, Taylor, I get it. I get it. And I love that this book is so focused on just like classic comfort food because I don't know about you, but this year, that's like all I want to eat. I haven't been, it's just like food that feels like a hug on a plate is what I want to be eating because you got to take the love wherever you can get it, right? So what was sort of the thinking behind kind of creating a book that is filled with these just like warm and cozy classic comforts?
Well, ironically, like I did not know we'd be in a pandemic when my book came out. I did not know that the world was going to be shutting down for this, for who knows how long. But for me, I want to say for the last few years, I have started to question a little bit about um, sort of why I eat the way that I eat. I've been farming for almost 11 years now. I'm, really a big, advocate for the local food movement, but I did find myself having a little bit of an identity crisis with some of my food choices. And even though we live in a community with a lot of ranchers, a lot of hunters, a lot of foragers, I found myself still cruising, just different aisles in the grocery store and grabbing things to make, alternatives to a lot of things that I'm lucky I don't have any allergies to any type of food, but I was
Mm.
sort of eating more of a vegetarian diet, a little bit more almost close to vegan for a little while. And over the last few years, I wasn't sure why, but I kind of felt like because somehow somewhere in my head or somewhere someone was telling me that's how I should be eating, but it wasn't feeling right. And I started to I wanted to know a little bit more about where we live, and we've been going to these farmers markets for years. I'm like, well, gosh, we've got people, raising meat right around us. And I've been a meat eater for a while now, but I wanted to start supporting the folks that are in our community, that are our neighbors, and also being a vegetable farmer, I also know that vegetables are not vegetarian, and it felt a little counterintuitive to be eating pretty vegetarian and also growing vegetables that rely on animal products to be really healthy. And I don't know, over the last few years I kind of went into an identity crisis with why am I eating the way that I'm eating and what am I really craving? And what I am craving is comfort food and home and knowing a little bit more about where I live. And we're very lucky. We live in a rad place with really, really rad people doing awesome things that I didn't really realize for a while, which I'm ashamed of. I'm actually ashamed of not knowing that some of these people have been doing it for so long, for generations, and they're my neighbors. And I didn't know that they were, you know, down the road, or even, you know, 50 miles away or 100 miles away. And that just feels really, really good. So I feel like I've found my community a little bit more through this book, and these recipes feel, I'm cooking out of this all the time. And my first cookbook, I love my first cookbook. I'm so proud of it. I do think that as a family, we will be cooking out of this one a little bit more. It's not, they're a little bit more down home recipes. But they feel good. Like you said, I'm glad you said the hug, because that's actually, that makes me feel very, very good. Because that's sort of what I was going for, that I think a lot of us maybe have lost our way. I don't want to speak for anyone, but some of my friends, I feel like we're all kind of, you know, we're in a hustle every day, and it's kind of nice to turn back to some of these classics, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's what I'm eating these days. Oh, I have so many questions. I love listening to you talk, but let's start with Local 30. So that is a project that you did, that seems to be, that sort of was the impetus behind the book. Can you speak to that project and what that did for you and your eating philosophy?
Yes. Sorry, my dog is barking. That project was sort of, you know, circling back to what I was saying. I literally was in my kitchen one day, and I was kind of like going through my spice, you know, cleaning out my cupboard, kind of doing like a spring clean. And I was looking literally at a can of coconut milk, and I was like, where the hell did this come from? And being a farmer too, and I'm like, God, imagining like who's picking these coconuts?
Not a lot of coconuts in Oregon, huh?
Not a lot of coconuts in Oregon. This has traveled really far, and you know, and then who packaged them, and then who shipped them, and then who, you know, just all this. And I didn't know where this came from, and I thought, well, dang, I want to know. I want to know. And I also, you know, started thinking, well, gosh, if I took this out of my cupboard, you know, what are things that I could, you know, how do I start tracing, you know, my food? And so I got really excited about the possibility of, I read this book also called Plenty, about, they're a Canadian couple, but they did a 100-mile diet. They wrote this book in maybe the 90s or early 2000s, but they ate for a whole year with 100 miles of, I think, the BC area. And I read the book, and I got really inspired too, that they were able to, I mean, down to the only cheat they had was salt, but they found, you know, they were eating a lot of meat and potatoes. But it was really inspiring. And so I had this epiphany, and I was like, you know, I want to give this a go. Can I eat from, I would have done 100 miles, but we are so damn close to the coast. The coast is 180 miles. And I just thought, oh, we need some fish. We need some seafood. So, but yeah, I wanted to, my sister-in-law was really gung-ho with me. Her and I were chatting about it after I had this little kitchen, you know, clean out the pantry epiphany. And she's like, let's do it. Let's do it. And we, you know, did it in the fall, where it's an abundant time of the year. So it was an easy time to source everything as locally as possible. But it turned out to be really fun. It was a challenge, but it was actually really fun.
Yeah, it looked like it. I mean, reading the stories of you going out on the tuna boat, that's amazing. I'm jealous. That sounds so fun. And what I love about what happened in that movement is the conviviality that it created. You're connecting to the, not only just the land and the products that are coming that you're surrounded by, but then the people are getting on board too. Like, I love, was your local donut shop made a donut modeled after Local 30, right?
Totally. It was so rad.
So cool.
She said, she was like, the only cheat was the leavening agent. And I was like, no, that's so great. Like, it's just so cool that, the people got on board. Even our local watering hole, the pub up the street from us, they did a local beer because most of their hops were local, but their wheat, I guess, wasn't. And they did a local beer, and they actually did a brunch that was all local. Like, it was cool to see that people were like, oh, we live in a really our community rules first. So I'm like, oh my gosh, the fact that people rallied was it was really inspiring, because we didn't ask that, it was really, really rad. But yeah, so I think people started to have this same thought as me, like, well, dang, we're already doing this one thing. Could we do it with what we've got in our backyard? And that was really neat to see.
What surprised you most in that process?
That we have so much. That the majority of what I eat now, and what that kickstarted, was that I don't need to venture far to eat really, really well. We can eat well, nourish ourselves pretty, and not break the bank, but like, we have so much. And I know that it helps that we're in a really healthy region to grow a lot of food, and that we've got a lot available. But it inspired me to really think twice about our grocery store, and to really see, can I go to the source, and cut out the middleman with a lot of stuff, and I can, and that feels really good.
That's amazing. What's something that you eat now a lot of that you weren't eating before?
Butter. A lot of butter. Yeah, a lot. I'm a lot more animal protein, and I actually feel really good. You and I were on a phone call earlier, and I was getting some acupuncture. This was a couple of years ago for a little bit of a health issue, and she was like, "You really need to be eating more red meat." And I feel better, but also, some of the animals that we are eating, we can see in the pasture next to us. I see our Thanksgiving turkey every day. And it's not for everyone, I understand, but it's for us. And so we have so much. But I am eating, I'm eating some more fatty foods, but I feel good. But yeah, we're eating a lot of animal protein, and really good cream. We found a really rad local dairy. We get some goat milk from our neighbor, but there's about 30 miles away, there's a dairy that I talk about in the book. And we get some raw milk from them. Raw milk's illegal in Oregon, but it's legal in Washington. So we call it our outlaw milk. So we cross the border to get it every couple of weeks. And so I'm drinking a lot more milk. I hadn't drank milk since I was like 12. And now in my mid to late 30s, I'm drinking a lot of milk again, and it's divine. It's the best.
That's amazing. I come from dairy farmers on both sides, so I've always been into the butter, but it's a beautiful thing. I love that you touch on the meat, because it's a tricky one, right? We were talking about this just briefly before, but I just watched the new David Attenborough movie that just came out, and I was watching it with the kids, and we had a discussion about like eating less meat and less animal products. And I had the same issue with you. My naturopath was like, you need to be eating so much more protein, and ideally from animal sources, is what she was saying. And it is that reminder that every body is different, and what looks like health for us it's different for everyone. But I also think that in the way that you describe these farming practices of the local producers is beautiful and sustainable and regenerative. And so I think I love that you touch on that, and I appreciate your honesty in that. And I know that you're open to, it's not for everyone, but this is what works for you.
Yeah, no, and thank you, because I was really nervous. This was a big sidestep from my first book, and I I was really nervous I've evolved as a cook and as a human over the last few years. And I am so happy with people that are gonna that will be a part of the journey. And I respect anyone that is like, nah, that's not for me. And that, because I know that people, I'm so proud of my first book and I love it. And this one just felt so different. And that is nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking because there's a part of me that was like, I don't want more of the same. But I also was like, but I don't want to deter the people that really have been a part of dishing up the dirt. I didn't want them to feel left out, but I also was like, but I did this thing and I'm doing this thing, and who knows what I'll be, this feels right for me. And I think that this had started to feel right a while ago, but I wasn't almost ready to go there. And then I was going there, but not telling more close friends. And it's so funny when you change sort of the way that you eat. It feels like, why does it feel like we're leaving a religion or something?
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's and food is so personal, and
Yeah.
it is. But I was really nervous about this book, to be honest, when I started to do the recipes. And for me, it was more the story. I wanted to tell the story. I thought people would be interested in the story, but it came down to the recipes. And I was going through, I was like, there's a lot of animal products, which is, in my first book, there was maybe five to 10 out of 100 recipes. And in this one, it's the exact opposite. There's probably maybe 10 vegetarian recipes. And so I know that's not for everyone, but it's where I'm at, and it feels really good to have it out there, and for anyone that has been wondering the same thing. I think that, I hope that it, at least if anything, inspires people, whether you choose to cook the recipes out of this book, to sort of look around and maybe find some producers in your area that are growing things that are, regional, and getting to meet people. I don't know, even if it's in this day and age, obviously we're in COVID, but even pre-COVID, even emails to different farmers. There were some people I never met, but some stuff would come. It's like, okay, I'm not going to make it to Southern Oregon, but I'm now communicating with, these people that are growing some really great oats that are, now we're using their oats in our oatmeal, but I don't know them personally. But now, it's great for the internet that now there's a relationship. So whether it's personal, or whether it's, a physical relationship, or just, a relationship via online, it's pretty rad. So that's felt
well. And you, as a farmer, you must understand and appreciate, when people reach out to you and want to eat with such beautiful intention, that you value that. I mean, farming is not easy. You have to be passionate, and you are passionate about the food and what you're growing. And so when that passion is met with who you're growing the vegetables for, that's exciting. And so I can imagine that, whoever's growing your oats in Southern Oregon was thrilled to get an email from you and have the opportunity to connect with, the people that are enjoying the product. That's got to be so rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. But yeah.
Totally. This is one of my favorite quotes I've read in a cookbook before. You say, wellness is a different type of monoculture, and I think it is the opposite of resilience. Can you talk more about that? I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. Again, a little bit, nerve-wracking to even, be talking about, I've always had the word wellness is really triggering to me, and has been for almost since I got into farming. And I think that, but I also I subscribed to a lot of to the wellness industry. It's why, even though I live in Oregon and I farm all these vegetables, it's why I all of a sudden was like, oh, I think that maybe I should give up dairy. I think it's really inflammatory. I should probably give up gluten. This is all me saying, I've never went to a doctor telling me I needed to get rid of some of these things, but I sort of fell victim for a little while, kind of quietly. I feel like through all my years of having a website and my first cookbook, I don't believe preached a certain way of eating. I think that it was pretty subtle that there was a lot of vegetarian recipes or plant-based recipes, but inside I definitely felt like, okay, how do I make this without, gluten or what, and I fell victim. I don't know, for years, and it didn't. I see that happening a lot, and I feel like the wellness industry takes the joy out of just eating, and I think it overcomplicates what wellness really is, what health is, and I have beef with that. I especially, and more beef with it now, just being in my late 30s, knowing that in a lot of my 20s that I fought with that I was had these, thoughts of well, is that, I just overthink or overthought a lot of my dietary choices. And I think that it was coming from this umbrella of this wellness industry and this health industry. And it makes me kind of sad to think that, I spent years when really in my backyard, all these wonderful, healthy, I also don't like that word, but I just have struggled with the wellness world. And I think that they also make us reliant on on outsourcing the stuff that we don't really need in our cupboards. And some people, maybe they do, but I just think that I was ordering shit on Amazon all the time. Why am I ordering shit on Amazon? Acai stuff is, it's so, it was just why am I doing this again? But no, it's supposed to be really good for me. And
all right.
I did that for a while. And again, I was kind of quietly doing that because I also was, we grow all these vegetables. So I was, putting weird stuff in my smoothies, and it was expensive, and I felt no different. I don't know. So I was almost nervous to go there in the book, but I'm but this is where I'm at. And this is why I got to these places. And I think eating locally has saved me some money. And it's also saved my brain from overthinking. Is this good for my skin? Is this good for my bones? Is that it's just no, this grows here. This was raised here. This feels right.
That's right. And I think that's, why I just resonate with your story and your approach so much, because I think, again, that's what I've learned my own wellness, and what I try and teach my kids is you got to trust your own body, and you got to follow that intuition and create a relationship with yourself that you're listening. And if you feel inclined to eat meat, and this is, you're going through the beautiful intentional process of finding the right stuff, that's what you got to trust. And you're reaping the benefits of it from feeling really good, and it's a beautiful story. So I think it's a very powerful and important lesson and conversation, and I'm glad you went there. So thank you. I think it's an important conversation that we need to have as a food community at whole. So I really love that. I just have a couple more questions for you. Again, thank you to everyone out there who is listening. If you have any questions for Andrea, make sure you're putting them in the Q&A, and I'll make sure to save some time, because I know that that's such a valuable part. And you all, I'm sure, have many questions as I do. Okay. I bet you get this a lot, but I love the beautiful, purposeful intention behind the book. And I found myself, as I was reading it, just being so inspired in how I do my own shopping. And But what I do often find in reality meets beautiful intention, and sometimes I wake up with the best of intentions, and then as the day goes on, guess what, kids? It's boxed macaroni and cheese, and that's just sometimes the reality. So I know I don't want to ask the balance question because I feel like especially we as women, we get that question so often, and I resist the idea that balance is the goal and even possible. But what does this look like on a daily basis? And how do you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess, how do you strike that balance? And how do you have these beautiful, because I mean, you're a new mama too. You have a beautiful baby girl. And how, like how do you have this eating philosophy, and what does that look like on a daily basis?
Well, it's different on a daily basis. I don't know if there is a balance. I will say I'm not gifted at very many things, but I think I'm gifted in the damn kitchen. I do wish that I had found this out if I could have told my 12-year-old self that like, you will be really, really good at being in the kitchen. Like it would have saved all sorts of issues. But anyways, no, I know, I hear you. That is, I don't know that I have a balance. We have done a lot of takeout, especially since my babe was born. So we, the way that I have tried, and with the book too, really tried to, I don't like meal planning per se, but I will say it saves time and money. And so I do try and dedicate a little bit of the beginning of the week, especially like a Sunday, and kind of try and make it fun. I like being in the kitchen. I know not everyone does, but try and making it kind of fun, and deciding, okay, if we're going to have 3 meals this week, I'm gonna, get, if some of them are going to be meat based, I'll thaw the meat and, pull it from the chest freezer. We'll have our vegetables, but trying to kind of plan it out and then trying to make the most out of that so that like lunch is easy. If we did chicken, roast chicken and vegetables, we do a ton of open face sandwiches. I wish I would have done a little bit more of that in the book, of talking a little bit more about the leftovers. I didn't. That's sort of an afterthought, but
maybe that's the next book.
Maybe never again. No. There will be no, never say never. I said that after one. No, it's too soon, Ashley, too soon.
Sorry. That's like when people start asking when your next kid is coming.
Yeah,
sorry.
too soon. I'm still like sore. No. But no, I think that, I don't know if there's balance, but I think there's priority, and not to, and if eating this week home cooked meals is not your priority, screw it. Have takeout, have boxed mac and cheese. Who cares? That's why that stuff is there. And I think on weeks when you do want to slow down, then do it. There's this whole book, and even the intention behind it was just more about kind of a discovery, and it wasn't about doing it perfectly. There is no, I mean, if it was about doing it perfectly, and I even think about that, like, no one's going to do this perfectly. There was, when I did this challenge, I had people reaching out on Instagram. They're like, I live in West Texas, but I'm going for it. But for me, that's like, all of a sudden there's 3 main things that they found, local to them. And then a lot of stuff is not, but there is no, I don't know if there's necessarily balance, but it is making what you're cooking kind of go a long way. So you have some leftovers, and then just knowing that some weeks it's takeout and boxed mac and cheese. And then I think after a few days of that, it's like, okay, I wanna maybe, prioritize a home cooked meal or 2 this week. But I think that it's all about the priority. And if that's not the priority, no one should beat themselves up over it at all. We joke, we do a CSA, and this year we have 110 families, and so we're in communication with them every week, and we have people that are always like, we had to compost stuff. We're like, this makes great compost. It makes great compost.
Oh, the freedom to hear you say that.
Oh God,
beautiful.
It's like we get it. We get it so much. And like, even my husband, he jokes. I mean, he hates vegetables. He's a vegetable farmer. He is.
That's amazing.
He jokes. He's like, you got to choke down a lot of kale this week, but there's no perfect way, and we're doing the best we can. But I think that that almost goes back to the wellness thing, where it's like, you just do what feels right. But if this isn't a priority this week, then it's not a priority. Just a full belly's priority. And whether that's takeout or mac and cheese or, carrots and hummus and, and whatnot. But yeah, so with all that being said, I do like, I'm pretty good in the kitchen these days. But we're doing a lot more takeout. But I like, I don't know, that I'm really bad at a ton of things, but I am fast at chopping. My husband, in early postpartum, I was on bed rest for a really long time, and he had to cook for the first time in his life. And watching him slice things was so painful and so slow. I was like, well, no wonder so many people, no wonder you hate cooking. So, it's, it's, you do the best you can, and there's no perfect way.
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that so very much. And that's what I find in reading your book too. There's so much grace, and there's so much like, hey, this is what works for us. And even, you mentioned that, and you mentioned in the book talking about food deserts. And yeah, we live in the Pacific Northwest. It's abundant. It's amazing. And that's not the case, but you have also seen people get really, really creative and do beautiful things with what's around them, but also, and you give lots of great advice for, hey, if this isn't available, try this. And, so the recipes seem to be super adaptable to what works for you. And I always love that in a cookbook, that it's inspiring, but also gives you the freedom and the confidence to go out on your own and find what works for you. So I always appreciate that very much in a cookbook.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for writing this. And I know it's not an easy task to put out a book, and especially in a pandemic. And like we mentioned, you have a beautiful new baby. So it's been a big year for you.
It's been a year, but it's been a year for so many people. We're so lucky. So there's a lot of moving parts right now for so many people. So I do hope that the book, during such a heavy time, is, it goes back to that hug. I'm so glad you said the hug. I mean, that's like the best endorsement ever.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get into hug my buttermilk biscuits and gravy. I'm so excited.
So we had those for leftovers today, because we're doing them every Sunday. But no, I hope that this does, I mean, the whole emphasis too goes back to like home. And I think right now, that feeling safe is something that a lot of people, I think are struggling with or are wanting. And I hope that, I think that food and in our kitchens can sometimes be a place that we can feel really safe. So hopefully, that resonates with people.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All right. I am going to open it up to some questions that people have for you. So, okay. So can you talk about where you live and where's your farm?
Yes, I will not give an exact address. We live in Parkdale, Oregon. That's where our farm is. We are south of Hood River, and we're about 90 miles east of Portland, Oregon. So we're at about 1,600 feet elevation. So we get some snow, but we were in the Hood River Valley, which is primarily known for fruit. So we are among a lot of fruit orchards. But when we moved out here, there was not a lot of vegetable growing. There's more small farms popping up, but there's not a lot of vegetable farms right now. So we actually kind of moved at the right time, and vegetables grow really well out here. So yeah. So we're in,
that's perfect.
we're in a really cool place.
All right, that reminds me, there was another line that you had in your book that you say that instinct led you to farming. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what did that feel like, or what did that look like for you?
Well, I did not graduate college. I actually dropped out of college after a year. I have dyslexia. Also, if you're dyslexic, you can write books. I am really doing practical things, like just being outside. I was always really, as a kid, like being outside, being, farming just felt like I can do this, like putting seeds in the ground, watching it grow, picking, like it was very like, okay, I can do this. I might not be able to read very well, but I can do this. And my husband grew up on a farm, so he dragged me to the dirt, and I actually did not like it at first, but then I was like, oh, I can do this. And it all made sense. And it's a secure job. I mean, at least for people need to eat. And we're not vacationing in Hawaii because we had a great kale year. I mean, when you're slinging $3.50 bunches of kale, you're not, having second homes in Hawaii, but we have, a pretty honorable way of living, and we're happy. So instinct kind of got me there. I had a romantic vision of what farming would be like, and then the reality set in that it's really, really hard. But I also have stuck it out, and I really love being in the dirt and growing food. And there's good years, bad years, but that's also part of it.
That's amazing. All right, okay, someone has a question about writing recipes. She said, I would love to write recipes to help others with the CSA I'm a part of. What's your creating process?
I feel like this is going to be such a buzzkill of an answer. There is not a creative process. When I first started so I did not grow up cooking, although I wish I did, because I do love being in the kitchen. But when we're out in the field, this started like 11 years ago on the first farm we worked on. We'd be out, digging, let's say, turnips. I didn't grow up eating a lot of turnips, and the turnips would be next to, I don't know, dill and beets. And with the farm crew that I was, out working with, we'd be like, okay, so what if you're going to cook turnips tonight? And they're like, can you mix them with beets? Can you mix them with dill? And I quickly learned that if things are growing at the same time and you're harvesting them at the same time, they're going to go together. And that's just a rule of thumb. So for the CSA, if you're a CSA farmer, or you're a CSA customer and you have a box that has beets in it, and there's dill, and there's romaine, and there's potatoes, those things will go together. They're available at the same time. So whether you pair them with meat or whatnot, but what is available at the same time will go together. So like tomatoes will even go with watermelon, it's these weird food pairings. They might sound a little strange at first, but they typically go together. So there isn't a lot of, when I'm sitting down and writing a recipe, I actually don't spend a lot of time analyzing it. I'm like, okay, sweet, we've got turnips this week and the greens look killer. So I'm gonna make the greens into like a sauce. So maybe a chimichurri or a pesto, and I'm gonna roast those turnips with like maybe some salmon, and then there's a sauce right there. And that's just how my brain works now. And that might be, my husband would look at that turnips in the box and say, I have no idea, where's the ranch? So I'm gifted like that. And I guess I'm not ashamed to say that. And not a lot of thought goes into it, but I do know that what I've learned is that if they're growing together, they're going to go together. And you can serve some of it, raw, and make sauces out of the greens. And so yeah, I don't know if that answered that question.
Oh, that's awesome. What grows together goes together. That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
And I love that idea. I love that you talk about like the turnips and the greens, and we talked about this briefly too, that like being so intimately connected with your food makes you respect and appreciate it that all the more, that it does pain you to see anything wasted and thrown into the compost. We got chickens during the pandemic, so at least it becomes chicken food now, but still, there's something so, when you see the food growing, or when you're foraging, or how, going through that intentional process of gathering your food, whatever that looks like, then you just want to honor and respect it as much as you can. And there's so much value there.
Yeah, no, definitely.
We love our farmers. We do. Okay, let's see. Can you give suggestions for people who aren't farmers, how they can make deeper connections with their local producers?
Absolutely. I absolutely can. Yes, because I was that. So I am a farmer, but I invited myself on a tuna boat. Most times people will say no, and I will say I did not have a connection to those people. Like, it pays to be bold, and also know you will probably, people will say no. But ask. I think that starting, if you live in an area where there's a farmer's market, introduce yourself to the farmers. See if they have a website. See if, okay, the farmers market's ending. A lot of farmers markets, we're in the Pacific Northwest. I know a lot of markets are starting to end at the end of this month or the end of November. We go through November, but see if you can, get an email, or website addresses of different farmers, and see, okay, so the market's ending. Will you have a surplus of anything that I can possibly pick up from your farm directly, or do you sell it to different markets throughout the winter? Start asking, and some people will be annoyed. I also know there's a lot of farmers that get into farming because they don't want to talk to people. They want to be outside and be solo. So a lot of that would be my husband. He likes to keep to himself, and he's a quiet guy. But ask. And also what I found, especially doing the local 30 and, in doing a lot of research for local dirt, is if you're not seeing what you're kind of looking for, if you're like, God, I'm looking for, where is local butter? Well, okay, maybe somebody, even the vegetable farmer, even the meat farmer, or somebody that's got cheese at the market will probably be able to point you in the direction of somebody that can put you in touch with that person. So definitely start asking questions. Start with your local farmers market. Go to your local Safeway or whatever your grocery store is and ask, go to the meat department or the vegetable produce guy. I love the produce guys from a regular grocery store, and ask about their supply chain. And then you can start maybe getting some emails and getting some websites, and you can start emailing. And again, take silence or no for what it is. But people, especially in the winter, are a little bored, especially farmers. They're not, it gets a little quiet, so people might reach out. So yeah, I think I'd start with the farmer's market or your grocery store and start asking about supply chain.
Great idea. Okay, during the local 30 and beyond, how did you decide what your cheats are? The things that brought you joy but come from outside of that 200-mile radius. Were yours different from Taylor's or others in your family? Ooh, that's a fun question.
That's a very fun question. Yes. So I actually thought that my cheats would be I would rely a lot more on some of my old staples of like miso and tahini and, cashews. And I actually didn't rely on those. We drink coffee every morning. And so I knew that coffee would be a cheat, but I also wanted to honor the backbone of like the spirit of our experiment, which was, okay, we're going to get our coffee from the local coffee shop and, the local roaster. So to still feel good about supporting our community that's also not, their ingredients aren't 100% local. I think that's also important. It's a locally owned business. So we joked that the vegetables were not going to grow themselves or be harvested themselves without the caffeine. So coffee was a big one for me. And for my husband, that was one of his. And then he jokes, as my husband, who is just, he's from another planet. I love him so much, but he went all in. Aside from the coffee, he actually didn't, and he was like, well, he jokes that he just didn't eat the whole time. He's like, I just starved. But no, he kind of went all in. He did coffee and beer. Those were kind of his cheats. But my mom and dad did it as well. My brother and sister-in-law, some of our good friends. And I know that one of my girlfriends, she went all in and she had like chocolate was a cheat or a worth the journey. We're calling them worth the journey in the
Worth
book.
the journey. That's beautiful.
And I actually had olive oil as a worth the journey or cheat, but we did find a local olive oil press, and so that was awesome. But I found that the things that I was really excited to sort of have as these kind of cheats, I actually, once we started, it was like, let's kind of go all in. So during the actual 30 days, we were pretty, we didn't really use a lot of those aside from the coffee. And then in the cookbook, because I really wanted I wanted people to really cook, I didn't want people to feel like they were missing out or that the recipes were too plain Jane. I incorporate some international spices, but I still, in the spirit, it's like, okay, I'm going to go to my local spice shop. And I know that she sources from really great places. So, and also kind of deciding that too, like if it's not going to be local, well, how can I feel a little bit better or know a little bit more about where this is coming from and how it was grown. And so that also was kind of important to me with what I was deciding to have that wasn't grown around here. Yeah, I guess, coffee was kind of all of ours. And my dad, Bud Light, because that's what he drinks.
That's amazing. Yeah. Coffee and Bud Light. That's all I need.
So.
I love that. I love it. It's an incredible experiment, and then you've incorporated it into your life, but then, it's not holding it too tightly. It's not becoming a whole other religion where, this is good and this is bad, but yet honoring the intention behind it. And I think that's really beautiful.
Totally. And I do want to touch on that a little bit more. I'm glad you actually said that. Like even with this experiment, it was like, I didn't want this to be something that people were like, oh God, is this like another, it's like, no, this was just, I'm not, I don't know if this made a difference for our family, but like, I don't know if eating this way and eating regionally is the answer, or I don't have answers. I know that this feels right for me, but we went on this because we were curious. I still don't know if this is the end all be all and that everyone should be doing it. And I think that that's also important, because I think that people have come to me and they've thought that I'm this like local food expert, and I'm not. I'm just like everyone. I'm curious, and I found I did some research, so I found a lot of local producers, but I'm still really curious, and that's something that I want people to know too. Like we don't know. Like I'm right. Still, I eat like this because it feels good to me right now, and it feels really good to support my neighbors, and to not have to go to the grocery stores often. That's really privileged, kind of being in the country and getting to just drive to these different farms. But I don't know if that's, the way that everyone should be eating. But if people do start to question, like, well, where is this from? I think that is important. And whether that, is going to save the environment, I don't think that it will, but it might. I don't, I want people to know that I don't preach that this is how everyone should be eating, but I hope that people are curious about where the things are coming from.
I love that. I mean, like with everything in life, right? I don't think there's not one answer. And it's a beautiful, humble approach to it. And I think that however people take it and what they incorporate into their life, it's going to do nothing but add to their life and especially in these days, whatever ways that we can connect deeper into our community without, by doing it safely, I think is extremely valuable. I love that. There's one more question before we say goodbye, and I love this question because, like so many of us in a pandemic, I think we can all relate. We all tried to become little farmers, Andrea, and we have questions. So Keely says, I just finished up my 3rd summer of vegetable gardening. So she's ahead of me here. Any advice to get the most out of a small garden?
So the reason that this question always pains me is I have a kitchen sink garden that I put in 2 years ago and watered once. I am a terrible gardener. I actually am. And I feel like that sounds like such a cop-out. That it's hard for me. So with a small garden, my brain already goes to like rows and just this is a hard one, and I get it all the time, so I should have have a very fluid answer, and I don't.
No, I really love that answer though, honestly. Like yes.
Gardening is really hard, and farming is hard, but gardening, like I said, you should see my kitchen sink garden. I don't know what I'm doing. I planted things too close. I didn't water it. I didn't weed it. To get the most, I mean, I will say, if you have a small garden, plant things that are going to be the gifts that keep on giving. I would avoid, cabbages and those take up valuable real estate. You have to plant them early, and they are going to be in your garden the whole season. And they tend to be pretty buggy. You'd have to cover them. I would stick to a lot of the quick growing stuff. So like, okay, you can have arugula and radishes, and then you can be done with those and replant in that area. Kale you can have in the ground most of the season, and the leaves will keep coming back as you're picking them. I would stick to quick growing vegetables and not things that are going to be in the ground for most of the season. And you can, I mean, beets and carrots are nice because then you can store them. But I do think a lot of those winter squashes, and you can do those. But I think if you've got a farmer's market near you, leave those up to those guys. Because for me, a winter squash, which we grow a ton of them, that tastes good whether it comes from your garden or someone else's garden. But what really tastes good from your garden is your own radishes or your own arugula. That does make a difference. So I would stick to stuff that doesn't take up a lot of space and that is quick to from seed to harvest.
See, I could have used that information back in the spring when I devoted a good chunk of my garden to cabbages, which then all got fed to the chickens because the bugs really, and Brussels sprouts too. I was like, I have these beautiful purple Brussels sprouts. This is going to be amazing. No, I got none of them. So chicken food. So my eggs are going to be amazing.
Your eggs are going to be amazing. And yeah. So it wasn't wasted, but yeah.
It's not wasted, but I had visions of me making like sauerkraut and kimchi and but hey, so great advice. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting me just have this wonderful evening with you. It's such an honor to be in conversation with you and to celebrate your book. I know how hard it is to write a book, and I just commend you and want to say again, congratulations. It's truly beautiful. So
actually, thank you so much for doing this. And I really admire you, and it's so rad to like finally connect and chat. So
I know. I love it.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you so much for the wonderful conversation. And Andrea, thank you for inspiring all of us for, trying to do better about sourcing our ingredients closer to home and cooking seasonally with those ingredients. So thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you to all of our wonderful attendees and for the wonderful questions. again, if you missed any part of the author talk, we recorded it and we're going to be putting it up on our Book Larder YouTube channel the next day or two. And of course, you can order copies through Book Larder of Andrea's book. So again, thank you, ladies, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
All right, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.